No bottom. The carpenter built his house in Shippingport in 1922 with his very own hands, and he and Peggy Lou lived there without much worry but what the soil gave and whether or not the deer would stave in the fences around the garden's plot of land. And he raised a house, a barn, a 5-acre fence by hand, and 2 children before the Great Depression turned the tide against a third conception. The youngest one was 8, the oldest 11 when the valley rain began to fall in 1937. Now he had lived along its bank for each of 47 years, but could not swim, and so the river was all he ever feared. Going on that second great day of heavy rain, it seemed the storm had been unchained. The sky was something altogether other than what the sky had always been, and when the corner turned on hour 48, and still the wet wind did not abate, the river swell crawled out its bed, and like a black snake grown from the skin, it shed, crawling without feet, without hands, up the alluvial muck into the fertile lands. And when the third sun rose behind the ubiquitous clouds, the weak light which fell upon the neighbors' cows showed the river, too, to be up to their knees, and everywhere a wild thing roosting in the trees. So, for the first time in his life, he set foot into her chill, straight from bed, into the current nigh up to the sill, his wife's hand in his. They gathered up the boys from the little room full of floating toys, and the 4, followed by the swimming dog, made for the pole barn through the morning fog, where the loft was sure to loom over the watermark, and they must have looked ahead for the ark, when the carpenter filled their arms with tools to carry to the barn. "This'll be what we'll need most after she's done," was all he said to his wife and to his sons, and they rose dripping from her current onto the ladder. Then when her wardrobe came from the front door and headed for the distant Indiana shore, they sat there drying off in the excellent hay of the second floor of the barn on the 4th day, and had not noticed the water for some time, until it lapped against the 2x10 a crest of river slime, and the youngest boy cried out and startled all the rest, who rose to their feet and drew a cross about their chest, and said their quickened prayer, which answered in its kind. The carpenter drew out a handsaw, like a thought drawn from his mind, and set to cutting up the roof which ran overhead, and one by one he felled the planks without so much as rested. When he judged the lumber pile enough to hold their mass, he set about conjoining them into a river flat. When the river rose from that barn roof hole, a family burst through like a body giving up a soul, and the father with one long beam in hand, like some mad gondolier, did stand upon the edge of his greatest fear, calling out through the rain and tears and depths which his sorrow would contain. Quarter less twain, Mark Twain, half twain, until the house, barn, and tools were forgotten, and all in vain he muttered, "No bottom." Thank you.
Good girl, you can do it, girl.